Honorable Mayor Hidalgo, the Mayor of the City of Paris, Mr. Jean-Christophe Tortora, President de la Tribune, Mrs. Celia Blaoul, the Deputy Mayor of Paris, Mr. Mohamed Baudra, President of UCLG, dear colleagues at ICLEI. It's both a great pleasure and a privilege for me and for the citizens of Quelimane that I represent today to be here celebrating the 5th anniversary of such a human milestone as the Paris Agreement. It's a pleasure because I'm sharing this global platform on behalf of the people who trusted upon me to take their voices and aspirations to the world stage. But it's also a privilege and an honor to be here today, 5 years on, given the fact that most of my colleagues with whom I attended the signature of the Paris Agreement are no longer here. Today, cities are partners at all important gatherings on climate change. It was a very long journey. It was not an easy journey, but we are reaching our main goal. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to share a deep sense of satisfaction. As I mentioned before, 5 years ago, I was almost a lonely man, a lonely mayor, a lonely voice shouting on a desert. Today, 5 years later, I can assure you that I'm no longer alone. I have a battalion of my peers, of the citizens of my city, and other mayors and local leaders behind me, not only in Mozambique, but all over Africa and worldwide. Through ICLEI, where I'm the Vice President for Africa, and also at the global level, where I act as the Global Ambassador on Resilience for ICLEI, I've been trotting and working with my colleagues and peers from the 4 corners of the world to raise the voice of mayors and local government leaders at international gatherings, not only on climate change, but also on other challenges and crises that the world is facing today, such as desertification, floods, erosion, biodiversity, renewable energy, but and not least COVID-19. Health, just like climate, is the result of the consequences of our lifestyle and the way we design our cities. While urban centers have a history of thousands of years, cities as we live today are designed as the victim of our civilization based on fossil fuel. Our cities are not built anymore to save livelihoods, but to serve cars and to serve for unsustainable development patterns. The way we move, the way we eat, the way we generate and consume energy, the way we design our spaces, the way we manage our waste and relate ourselves with nature defines whether or not our citizens are healthy and our cities are climate friendly. What is more worse, unfortunately, the current unhealth and climate incompatible urbanization models are being imposed through development aids, financial models to the cities being new built, not only in Africa, but also in Asia and Latin America and other developing worlds. Those new built cities have the opportunity to escape from the mistakes of the past. And that is why it's so important to connect post-COVID development and finance to climate, nature, and human-friendly urbanization. In Quelimane, we are demonstrating by doing. We have several projects and programs dealing with local food, trying to zero waste, using and implementing more friendly mobility strategies, implementing bicycle pathways, but also working on biodiversity and protecting mangrove. We are aware that we still have a huge desire and potential to introduce renewable energy, public transport, circular economy, and digital tools, which we can introduce through our purchasing power. Once we achieve this, our cities will be climate friendly and our citizens will be healthy. For cities like Quelimane to leapfrogging to a sustainable urbanization, it can be possible if we connect to this progressive process and networks. ICLEI, for example, is an excellent in this regard with its 5 development pathways about low emissions, resilient nature-based solutions, circular economy, equitable development. Those should be the pillars that we should inspire us to achieve a sustainable development. Therefore, we invite partners and all UN agencies to support such networks so that they don't invent the wheel, but rather help us to expand to thousands of cities like Quelimane and millions of leaders like me. In this regard, I support the Paris Declaration as well as Race to Zero and commit to spread in further in Quelimane, Mozambique, and Africa through the different local leaders network, but also through my leadership at ICLEI. 2020 has clearly illustrated to us that the nature of risk has changed, and we need to proactively plan to address the cascading impacts that have never been more clear than in 2020, when we continue to face the challenges of climate change whilst we battle to know and unknow of COVID-19. My city of Quelimane is particularly vulnerable to the effects of climate change, specifically flooding and erosion. But there is a limited budget, there is a limited number of people who understand and know how to deal with the challenge. The COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in the limited climate adaptation budget being relocated to other sectors deemed to be in more urgent need of it. We therefore see the cascading nature of risks with a crisis such as COVID-19 impacting in all aspects of our society. The interlinked nature of the impacts of pandemic have seen impacts in our ability to respond to climate change. Due to the reallocation of funding, it has also impacted on our food systems in cities where movement has been limited. It has been challenging to ensure produce gets to market and to safely manage food markets in health crisis where hygiene and social distancing are paramount. Ladies and gentlemen, with increasing unemployment and financial constraints in many urban households as a result of the COVID pandemic, access to food to keep families fed has been also a challenge. And governments, specifically local governments, have had to assess their budget to provide support to communities and looking forward at urban agriculture, which can provide solutions and access to food in times of crisis. Our urban environments are often frenetic with energy and movement, and we've seen as movement has decreased, the increasing pressure this places on our transport systems. Quelimane is the first city in Mozambique to introduce not only taxi bicycles, but also to adapt the road network to the needs, priorities, and interests of the cycling community. We are not only working to reduce the number of motorized vehicles on the road, but by investing on non-motorized means of transport, we are opening avenue for employment for the youth. We are promoting inclusion by bringing into the mainstream of the municipality policy making those who were yesterday excluded from it. As I mentioned, Quelimane is working towards establishing cycling paths, cycling highways, and shared bicycle program to improve cycling and pedestrian conditions. This should be the norm for all types of new projects or development, as sustainable and efficient mobility is a precondition for economic growth and personal well-being. However, with the advent of COVID-19, our transport sector saw many challenges with reduced income as a result of people not moving around the city as much as previously, which can result in loss of income to households, bringing the integrated nature of the challenge to full circle. Thank you very much for listening.